We'll go through a few ground rules. We'll go through some changes and give you the timeline, and then we'll talk about our overall engagement strategy. Next slide, please. Next slide. Just a reminder of the ground rules. Next slide, please. All right. Can you back up one, please? Just to not preview this there. Just hold for a minute. So I would like to take a minute and just introduce myself for those of you that don't know me. My name's John Bonin. I'm currently the Medicaid Deputy Director focused on long-term care here in the EOHHS Medicaid office. I've been with the Medicaid program for about 7 years now in a variety of different roles, primarily as the Medicaid Director's Chief of Staff, under Director Teig, Director Schaefer, Director Souza, and for a period I was the Secretary's Chief of Staff when Anand Weiss was the acting Secretary, and then was asked to come back to the Medicaid program and work on long-term care as the primary part of my portfolio. I am assuming this role from Dr. Martino, so Ann has moved on to another project at the request of the Secretary, so we want to thank And I want to thank Ann for all her work that she did over the last several years on the LTSS program in the state and moving us in the direction of becoming in compliance with the CMS requirements. So, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank her for all the work that she did over the last couple of years to get us where we are. But I did want to take a minute and let you know a little bit about me and my role here of helping coordinate and move us forward to coming in compliance and aligning with the other programs. I also oversee our personal choice and self-directed programs, the shared living program, our nursing home transition program, help coordinate nursing home Medicaid payments and Medicaid policy for nursing homes and respond to any issues in coordination with Department of Health that involve our nursing home programs. So sort of a wide range of long-term care programs are in my portfolio. It has been a little bit of time since we've talked to you. We've taken that time over the summer to review feedback from the RFI, review feedback from other stakeholder meetings, review our overall readiness and what we've accomplished to date. And taking that all into consideration, I do want to provide you a few updates that are fairly significant in the approach that we believe will help us be most successful in meeting the requirements for Rhode Island to be free of conflict in our LTSS program. So Dustin, if you go to the next slide. So the pathway that we had been on was to issue an RFP for an agency to be our conflict-free case management agency. We're shifting course on that approach. We are moving towards issuing certification standards, which we believe that this will allow us the greatest ability to meet the capacity requirements that we know we have. Again, we listened to the RFI feedback, and a lot of feedback was in there about the approach we were taking and the requirements that were there within the RFP to serve both DD and EAD. We've listened to that, and I want to acknowledge that we understand that there are unique requirements for both DD and EAD, and the members that we serve, the skill sets that are required to support those are different. And so utilizing a certification standard approach for any willing provider, we believe that this will allow some additional flexibility, and for us also to have a pathway that throughout 2024 and beyond to continuously enroll providers as they are able to meet the certification standards of being a conflict-free case management agency, and also focused on the participants that they have the greatest flexibility to find a case management agency that meets their needs. The second change, and I sort of alluded to that, was and a case management agency will not be required to serve both the IDD population and the EAD population under the certification standards. The certification standards are being drafted from EOHHS and will apply to both. However, an agency can select to serve one or the other or both under this approach. And again, some of this is also focused on what we believe finding the simplest pathway for all involved, finding a pathway that's as simple for the state to implement, for members and families to navigate the network of the network of options within the system, and for providers to transition from the current model that you are operating under into one that removes the conflict. It is a very, very complex transition, and I want to acknowledge that's up front. We are implementing new technology. We are implementing changes on state staff responsibilities for assessments for EAD. We are changing work that is being done by case management agencies in terms of needing to conduct person-centered plans. So it is very, very complex. And we are trying to find the pathway that we believe will allow a more open dialogue between the state, families, providers, and help us navigate the complexities that exist within this system, with the goal by December of 2024 being free of conflict. And Dustin, if you can go to the next slide. The next one, please. Again, very, very simple timeline. We are working out the details that flow within this, but our goal is to have the certification standards available for review by either early October, if not sooner, and then begin working with you to have agencies become certified to provide the services that we need. The original timeline, again, unchanged. We're working to have the training that is required by early November. And the key date that's on this slide, and the reason why I wanted to keep the timeline simple, was December 2024 remains the goal to come into full compliance. That is unchanged. And so to be clear, if an agency is not certified by that time, we will not be able to have case management services provided by that agency beyond that point. So that is sort of from the strategic plan that's been out there, the agreement that's been with CMS, that the state is within full compliance. And again, our intent is through the certification, we can start as early as those are ready, as soon as an agency is ready. And we will continuously work through the year of 2024 to have agencies become compliant, and then work through all the transitions that need to happen throughout that year. I will pause at the moment and see if there's any immediate comment or questions. But again, I know this is sort of a bigger change from an RFP approach to a certification approach. But I want to assure you, we listen to feedback and believe that this is sort of allows us the clearest pathway to be to work with everyone to come into compliance with the federal requirements.
It's like Linda Ward has her hand raised.
Hi, I have a question. Will this be a close-ended certification timeframe, or will it be a rolling? So
it's a rolling, Linda.
Okay.
We believe that's why, again, one of the big reasons why we're moving to this approach versus an RFP approach. An RFP approach is a closed process.
Correct.
Right? The RFP gets posted, it closes, and we're done. That given the complexity of this transition, that we believe that this approach allows us that ability to work with everyone and continuously work throughout 2024. The close part of it, just to reiterate, is December 2024, that we need to have conflicts removed from the system. So
correct. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep. Mary Beth.
So in the Court Auditor's last progress report, he recommended a co-design of conflict-free case management so that external stakeholder input would be considered within the design, and we wouldn't be sitting here anymore where you made the changes and then we respond to them. is there any further thought to allowing this to be a co-design instead of us kind of just sitting here finding out what changes you've made for us?
I don't know if John or Kevin Savage from BHCDH wants to respond to that one.
Yeah, I mean, I will respond in terms of the requirements of the providers are not going to drastically change from what has already been discussed in terms of providing the service. How we procure it, whether through an RFP or an open certification standard, is really the primary change. And again, having an opportunity to comment on what was the RFP. So we took the RFI standards, and then we will continuously take your feedback. And again, I believe that this approach allows us to continuously take that feedback.
But I'm speaking specifically to the exact model itself. We still haven't drilled down on a PCP versus an ISP, plan facilitation versus case manager, community mapping versus community connector, goals versus objectives, the true role of the support broker. And so, you know, the model has to be fleshed out. It has to be finished. There has to be an agreement on it. You know, when we don't have shared understanding of many of those basic concepts, it will evolve into a lack of shared understanding as we move forward. And so I believe those conversations are necessary, and I believe that external stakeholder input will be highly valuable, so we can all have a shared understanding of how to implement this as we, you know, I think the model still has to continue to be fleshed out so there can be shared understanding of how to implement it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Annette?
Yes, it's nice that we talk about the input from state and family and providers. What about those of us who have to live with it? I am a recipient of services, and I am really concerned because every time I see you guys messing this, it gets worse. And there are some really frightening parts of this that are you know, that are really not being taken into account. And we're more important than any of your consultants. We live with it. We're the ones that are going to live or die based on what is done here. I don't think conflict-free case management has to be very complicated. I think it can be a very simple concept, but you really need to include those of us that have to live with it.
Yeah, and that, sorry if I came across that I was excluding the member that's receiving the benefit. I did not. So I want to, you are the whole focus of this. I want to just make that clear. But
we have to have input.
Yeah, and I do want to find a way to get your input. So if there's direct specific input that you would like to provide, please send it, and we can have someone connect with you if we need to get your your specific concerns or things that, and again, I think hopefully this approach allows us to have that open dialogue and take your feedback. So I do want to acknowledge, please, if there are specific things that you have concerns with, please provide them.
Okay.
Rita?
Good morning. This may have been answered earlier, but I wanted to make certain. So will providers be allowed to continue to provide services under our existing contract while we're preparing to become certified, and then certainly becoming certified by December 2024?
Yeah, we're working through that approach now, Rita, to make sure that we have that bridging, understanding that there is going to be a transition period that we need to have sort of both running at the same time until we come into full capacity. So hopefully by the September update, we'll be able to provide you a very specific, like what is going to be that pathway. But you're exactly right there. We are working through the approach we need to have those two things run parallel.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Kevin Savage. I apologize to you, John, and to everybody for joining late, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm here now and happy to take any questions from the DD stakeholders.
Robert?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just trying to, so from what I am gathering, the changes that you're talking about right now are the certification standard versus the RFP. And then number two is that agencies that provide the case management need not provide it for both populations. What is not clear, and what is people have been asking about, I think all along, is that in order to get to conflict-free case management, there is a whole workforce piece to this that involves hiring for DHS, involves, sort of separating out what agencies that provide these services currently do. The last meeting we had, the folks that provide services for the population of folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities, provide services and support to those folks, and it looks like it may not fit into the conflict-free case management, but it's like, as you said, it's such a specialized population. So where are we going to get a little more specific about, like, I know that in the some of the materials we received, we talked about 11,000 people and how many case managers we're going to need. DHS needs to hire. I mean, this is a change, but I'm not sure that it gets to the heart of the matter. So, I guess my question is where are we with some of those issues? I don't know if I'm being clear.
No, you are, Robert. And again, the workforce issue is one that is even bigger than like what we're trying to accomplish here, right? It's a statewide healthcare workforce, right? So acknowledging that it is a much more broader one. There are efforts here at EOHHS to address the workforce issue as a whole. There is and that's again trying to move to an approach that's a rolling approach through the year was the workforce was another factor that, if we did an RFP in October, would we suddenly have a workforce to meet the requirements of the RFP? I didn't personally believe that was true, that again, the federal requirement of being conflict-free is not going to go away. That's still December. So using an approach of this rolling certification standard allows us over 2024 to work on those specific challenges of agencies working through coming up with the capacity of the workforce and some of the other workforce initiatives that are here at EOHHS to help support that. On the DHS side, they have increased their capacity of social caseworkers. They've had a successful summer in hiring. The numbers are somewhere in the 24 to 27. They were 6 back in the spring. So they've had a very successful summer. Now comes the training, and the readiness for them to take on the initial assessment and be ready to do that work. But on that part, that actually was a success that occurred over the summer, was DHS increasing the workforce there on that part that you specifically mentioned.
Yeah.
But it is a real challenge. And as an overall, I hope this approach allows us the ability to be as flexible throughout the year to work through the reality of the workforce issues that everyone's facing.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Robert. Any other questions before we go on to the next couple of slides we have here? All right, so I'm going to go over the stakeholder engagement, which I think will help answer some of your questions about how to be engaged and where there's opportunities for you all to provide feedback. And so we're going to cover that in the next couple of slides. And really moving forward, EOHHS will offer those multiple opportunities and approaches to engage with you all and to provide ongoing opportunities for you all to provide feedback and provide regular updates on the progress of conflict-free case management. It's also committed to keeping you all informed and updated as it continues to implement this new program across the state. This is just the way in which the state's going to engage with stakeholders over the next couple of months up until the end of this year. So there's 3 different things that we'll cover today. The first is really the website. So EOHHS has made changes to its conflict-free case management webpage to make it easier to navigate. And then we'll begin to start posting those future stakeholder engagement meeting dates. So you all can put those on your calendars and attend those meetings. As it is done in the past, it will continue to post materials to help educate and inform stakeholders on this initiative. So right now there's 4 other stakeholder meeting presentations posted. There's fact sheets and there's a flyer for participants. And certainly we envision over the next couple of months, there'll be some additional materials posted to help inform stakeholders on this initiative. Moving forward, there'll be a monthly meeting with for all stakeholders where EOHHS will provide status updates, answer questions, and gather your feedback. And on the next slide, we'll share the dates for these upcoming meetings. And then the third type of engagement will be those one-on-one meetings with stakeholders who are directly impacted by conflict-free case management. And the state has done several of these meetings in the past, but the focus of these upcoming meetings will be around changing business processes or changes in certification standards. And EOHHS or BHCDH will reach out to these stakeholders once it's ready to begin these conversations. So this is just the schedule for the monthly all stakeholder calls. So as I mentioned, these meetings will be held every month. They'll be held at on the last Thursday of every month, except for December, which will be held on the 14th. The topics will vary each month, but a standing agenda topics will be to provide updates on progress. And then during the next meeting, EOHHS will share an updated implementation timeline, which will include more details than the one that John shared with you all today. And we did list, you'll see on the slide here, we put TBD as other agenda topics. This will be really based on the state's implementation plan, which it'll share with you all in September. And we'll also use these monthly meetings to address any feedback that you provide during these discussions. So this is the Q&A portion. I know you all have already asked some great questions and the state's provided some great feedback, but we'll open the floor to your questions. And we'll answer questions 2 ways. The first is chat. So Jillian we'll read out the chat questions. And then the second way you all can ask your questions is by raising your hand and I'll call on you. Just as a reminder, since we only have 30 minutes here, we'll try to limit each question answer to 3 minutes. And then if we run out of time for your question, place your question in the chat and we'll add that to the Q&A log that we post after these meetings, and that's posted on the EOHHS website. So open it up for questions. And Jillian, I think we could start with the comments in the chat.
Yeah, sure. So the first question that's coming in through the chat is from Suzanne, and she's asking any updates on the reimbursement rate for conflict-free case management.
We're currently finalizing that. As folks probably know, we're balancing, we're creating the FY25 budget as we're in now. We're reviewing the FY24 budget that we have to have by the end of September. So the intent is by the end of September, the next stakeholder meeting, that we will have a finalized update on the reimbursement rate. So we don't have it at the minute. I don't want to speak too early to it. I prefer that I go through what I have to go through in terms of the budget review and then be able to provide an update at the end of September.
Mary Beth, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so the question I have is originally, and first, Mr. Bonin, I would like to thank you very much for leading this. The format seems to be very helpful for me. When I co-chaired the original conflict-free case management group, and when we originally made it, we really separated out service planning from service provision. So if you provided service planning on any level, it wasn't to that same person. You could not also provide service provision. And there was some back and forth as to whether you couldn't provide it across the board or whether you simply couldn't provide planning and provision of services to the same person. So when it started, you had to sit in one pocket or another. Has that changed? Will people be allowed to do service planning and also service provision, but not for the same person?
No, that part is not changed. It's by, we haven't separated it down to that, to the same person. It's by the agency for the service type. So you can't provide case management and services to the same population. So we haven't changed that provision.
Thank you.
Okay, well, there's a question in the chat here from Annette. And she is asking, has EOHHS changed its primary goal away from trying to keep her enrollee?
Am I muted?
No, I'm reading the chat question. I don't know that that's a goal, right? So we're not trying to keep it below any national median that I'm aware of in any conversation. I think we're sensitive to the reimbursement rates that are required to support businesses within the state budget. So I don't know that there's a national median benchmark. Okay, I'm reading in that. Yeah, I haven't said that, and I haven't heard that. I think we always want to try to keep costs low. I don't know that you haven't heard it from me. So in terms of trying to keep it below a national median as a goal. So if that was said before, I'm not aware.
Any other questions? Mary Beth?
I want to be thoughtful of other people, but if there are no other questions, I just want to know, is it possible, what I pointed out, and I know Director Savage was not on the call at that time, is it possible to continue to have some open conversations? Because I have, like I say, I listed off 6 items: the PCP versus the ISP, plan facilitation versus case manager, community mapping versus community connector, goals versus objectives, ironing out support broker role, these kinds of things. There's a number of concerns that I have. Is it possible to have some open dialogue with either Mr. Bonin or the group or whatever? I just think that, there's some pivoting, but I would really see value in us having a shared understanding. And I welcome any conversation that I can have with people so that and I believe others who have these concerns, we can all be clear about the expectation, because I just don't think these have been drilled down on, and I think it will matter. So is there any availability to have a conversation regarding these really core items?
So if you want me to just talk about that a little, John.
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin. Yep. Go ahead.
I think it was identified a little earlier that there are 3 types of communication, but the third type is targeted stakeholder meetings. And as we've developed certification standards that will target what case management and what the standards are generally for case management, and then target case management based on the field of expertise. One area being DD, which I think is what you're most concerned about, Mary Beth. And as we determine what expertise and what are needed by field, certainly those targeted stakeholder meetings, I think, would be where we would discuss those specific areas by population. So the answer is specifically yes, there's still room for conversation.
Okay, because it's my understanding what we're doing now is will it be that the interagency work group builds it and then we provide feedback? As I had mentioned before, the court recommended a co-design, which means building it together so we all have a shared understanding. We all understand the expectations, and people have a better idea of what they're committing to if in fact they're going to assume this role. And as one woman pointed out, she's the person, and I feel as though I am too as a family member, have a better understanding and a shared understanding. And I still see us challenged to get there. And so will a targeted stakeholder meeting be yet again somebody saying, this is what we've decided, you're welcome to provide feedback? Because I've not found that to be efficient in truly changing and having a shared understanding of the model.
Kevin, if I can just jump in on that one. Mary Beth, I want to commit to that not being the standard, that it's what we've decided and we move forward. So I do welcome the ability to sit down. Some of it's, again, we don't have much time, so we're going to have to, work as quickly as possible, but I want to ensure that we do have an open dialogue and you don't feel that we're just coming and presenting. I know today I came and I presented, hey, this is what we've decided to change the model, but those details now that are within the model, if we can work together to ensure that we're all on the same page. And like you said, we may have to say that this is what the federal requirement is or what we need the program to be, but hopefully there's an understanding of how we got to that decision.
If I could just clarify 2 points. One, CMS has jurisdiction over conflict-free case management. The court has jurisdiction over how DD proceeds. And so I don't want to make anyone else nervous who's on this call that isn't affiliated with how DD is going to proceed. The court doesn't have jurisdiction over conflict-free case management, CMS does, but the court does have jurisdiction over how DD proceeds. So I just want everyone to understand that's why there needs to be different standards for how DD proceeds versus the rest of the conflict-free or LTSS group.
Okay, we'll jump to a question in the chat. What is the plan when there are multiple clients served by different agencies in one household? For example, elderly parents caring for adult family members with disabilities all in one home.
I think a way to answer that is, members have a choice of which agency they receive their case management from. And so if a member feels that it's not the most efficient arrangement for everyone, I think the opportunities will exist to move to find the right fit for the member, if that's what the question is getting to.
Another chat question: what will the role of the agency service coordinators be in conflict-free case management? And that was a question from Chris.
Yeah, I think if we can take that one back, Dustin, to, we can provide that either in written response or in September.
Okay, we have another one in the chat here as well. Will service planning be taken as a whole? Case advisor, mobility specialist, and nurse evaluation as an overall case management?
I think this is one of the ones we're reviewing. So in terms of the structure for some of of how it's structured. So I think that's good feedback. We can take that back and look at how things are structured and we'll work that in.
Okay, and Annette doesn't have a question, but she did provide some feedback, but she appreciates the ability to provide some input, but the idea of DHS workers providing the needs assessment absolutely terrifies her. And then we have a question from Suzanne. How will conflict-free case management be implemented with NHPRI LTSS consumers?
So the managed care agencies are conflict-free as there is now. So initially, no change. In 2025, managed care will be moving into LTSS services. Again, to clarify, on the EAD side, we'll be moving into plan. But upfront, I don't see a change for initially the LTSS consumers that are affiliated with neighborhood at the moment.
It looks like Deb Burton has a question. What is the plan when there are multiple clients served by different agencies in one household? For example, elderly
We
parents
got
care
that one.
for.
I think that, an individual should be able to have the choice to change agencies if that arrangement's not the best arrangement for them. So,
Mary Beth, do you have your hand raised?
Yeah, you said that as of November 23rd, the conflict-free case management training curriculum developed. Do you have you already committed to who will be developing in that? And again, will that be co-designed? Previously, it was mentioned that it would include external stakeholder input in the development of the training curriculum. So 2 questions. Who and will it include?
yeah, we've been working on that internally to meet the federal requirements that we believe exist for providing from the state provided training. If there's other trainings that are out there, we're open to feedback at this time, Mary Beth. So what we've been focused on is what we need to. There's some HCBS rules that are out there that are requiring training that we're trying to align with as well. But yeah, we're open to any specific feedback you have.
So I submitted the curriculum for 2 trainings that currently exist within this state. And then I also built a curriculum that I submitted for consideration. I think there's great ways without reinventing the wheel to get us to something acceptable and workable.
Okay, my understanding is that they do have what you've submitted, so that we've looked.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I think you, I understand that. Have you submitted paperwork before or ideas before?
Yes.
Yeah, that we do have that. And are working to incorporate that feedback.
Maybe you want to switch to chat?
Yeah, I don't think that there are any new ones here. Yeah, we got them all. Anybody else have any questions?
No, I will acknowledge, I think Suzanne put in there about the transition if someone leaves neighborhood and goes, that we'll work that into our transition planning. Robert?
Yeah, just a quick, I missed what Kevin said earlier about the different, the court versus, the 2 different populations and how that's being handled in the certification standards. Could you repeat that, Kevin?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, someone had brought up the intent of the court, and I didn't want people who aren't under the jurisdiction of the court to be concerned that if you're in the EAD population or overseeing that, for example, that you would have any concerns that the court is trying to influence that. They're not. So the court has jurisdiction over developmental disabilities under a consent decree.
Got it. Okay.
And are not trying to influence the rest of conflict-free case management. I didn't want that to alarm anybody. That was really my only intent on clarifying that.
Yeah, no.
The stakeholder who brought that up is absolutely correct, that the court is directing DD, but we are separating and have been very careful to separate that doesn't impact the rest of this process. So, thanks for asking that, Rob, because if you were confused, other people may have been as well, so I appreciate it.
Well, yeah, just didn't know about that as much, so thank you so much.
Appreciate it. You're welcome.
Yeah. And to Kevin's point, we are trying to move forward in a unified fashion while acknowledging the unique, unique needs of both. So.
Okay, and Annette is asking, can we have some email addresses? So Annette, we do have an email address at the bottom of this slide. And it's also on the Rhode Island Conflict-Free Case Management website. So you can submit all of your questions, information, concerns to that website there.
So-
Yeah, somebody says they won't be attending and looks like Dustin responded. So yes, all of the meetings are recorded and will be posted to the conflict-free case management website.
And then in regards to Rebecca's question, sorry, Jillian,
Sure.
that we are working through the approach. The RFP for the next managed care contract is going to be published later this fall. It is taking into consideration the move to conflict-free case management. As I mentioned, LTSS is going to move into, on the EAD side, is going to move into managed care, and we're working in the arrangements that MCOs can have with the community agencies that are providing the services now. So that was another consideration, that was how we can, put together both the managed care transition and the agencies that are providing the services now, and how those two entities can work together.
Okay, thank you, John.
No,
Next
no,
question is,
people still have choice, right? So you can stay in fee for service, and that just answered. So we again, managed care is going to be how we manage the medical benefit, but I think people still have the choice to stay in fee for service.
and will this also apply to RIDE class?
I'm going to need to take that one back. Sorry on that one. So I want to make sure I answer that one correctly. I don't know, Kevin, if
Just specify, what are you asking if applies to RIDE class?
The same.
What's the specific question on RIDE class?
Conflict-free case management, the same
Yeah.
type of structure. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, what applies to the providers provides to RIDE class. RIDE class is treated as any provider.
Any other questions, either verbal or in the chat? No, it doesn't look like it. Well,
I
this will,
want to thank everyone. Dustin, I'll let you close, but I did want to thank everyone for the opportunity to provide the update today.
all right, so this will mark the end of our meeting today. Thanks again for everyone's feedback and interest in this important work, and we look forward to our next meeting in September. Thanks.
Thank you.